Hey, it is Flamingo Friday, everybody. And that means one thing. What does it mean? Oh, yeah, thank you. Yes! Oh, come on, give it up, give it up. Give it up. By the way, we're off here. You guys notice the rat? Yeah, look at the rat. And one more thing, wait for. Look at the rug. It's not centered. It really ties the room together, don't you think?
Oh, yeah.
Now it's close.
I was getting nervous.
One sec.
I know, I heard him talk about the room. Down the hallway.
You can hear the rug.
I didn't listen.
It probably goes all the way up to the science wing and everything.
It just carries.
All right. Where's my pens? Let us begin. Go.
All right, I interviewed my grandmother. She's born, raised, and still lives in Michigan. And I asked her questions, and then I got like answers to other questions, and then I asked other questions. So I tried to organize it as best I could. And so I asked, what do you remember about the war, and how did you feel about it? And she was in high school at the time, and so she said she was really worried for the draft, especially for her family. And they would watch the television for her family's numbers to come up, like her cousins and brothers and stuff. But none of her family was ever drafted, luckily. But she just felt like perpetual worry throughout the war of like not only worried for what's happening there, but worried for what could happen at home. And she also said it was the first time she had seen and the world had seen like media coverage of a war like that. And so she was shocked by what kind of images were coming back and what was happening because it had happened in other wars, but nobody had ever seen it before. And then she also talked a lot about how sad she was about the treatment of veterans. Um, and she continued saying that throughout the entire interview. Um, she didn't really talk much about politics. She briefly mentioned that some of her classmates were killed in the war, but she refused to elaborate more about that. So obviously she didn't like the fact that her classmates were being sent to war. And of course she was worried that other people were going to get drafted that she knew. And then she also talked about how still today she sees the effects because some of her friends were in the Vietnam War and still wake up screaming. I think somebody else talked about that. And how some of the people she knew in high school who went to the war are actually homeless now or died after being homeless. And she said she was also glad to see the end of the war. She was glad to see the return of her classmates and all the other veterans. And she said that she disliked, again, the treatment that the veterans got. And she said that it wasn't just that they were like shamed and yelled at in the streets like the myth says, but they were not recognized as heroes. They were just kind of left instead of being helped and treated. They just kind of were made to forced back into society. And she also said the media portrayed it as really bad, and the media kind of construed it as worse than it was, in other words, because it was the first time that people had seen televised killing. And then she did not know who was president or secretary of defense at the time. And she said she just didn't talk about it. And in her words, it was a different time. Women didn't discuss stuff like that. That was for the men. But she did remember hearing about protests and about how people coming back didn't want to talk about the time. They just kind of wanted to move on. I heard a story from my grandpa, my mom's side, about how he had two friends, and one signed up, and for some reason, because he signed up, his friend got drafted, and then the friend that got drafted was killed, and the one who signed up never forgave himself, even though he signed up to go fight in the war. She also said it was an angry time in the country, and when I asked her about like why is it relevant today, what's happened that you've seen like parallels to the Vietnam War, she said it wasn't our war. It was not about the United States. We were trying to stop communism, but it didn't work. Nothing was resolved. And so she kept saying that it wasn't about us and we shouldn't have been in it because it wasn't about us. And then, although I wasn't able to interview my grandpa on my dad's side, I do know some stories from him. So he volunteered to fight in the Vietnam War, and he was a clerk, so he didn't do any fighting, but he was in Vietnam, and he had a lot of friends who were like actually in the infantry and were sent out to go fight. And from what I heard, his friends would come back in bags, and he would have to process paperwork for all the deaths of his friends. And then they said, all of these people are dead. We need volunteers to go out. And my grandpa volunteered to leave his position and go and fight in the jungles, where he saw a lot of combat. Then he came back shortly afterward. He was hot rodding a Jeep, rolled it, got demoted, found the paperwork, and promoted himself. And then he, after coming out of the war, he quickly started a family, which was not a good decision. And the effects of the war are still seen on him today. Like he's very, doesn't like to talk about the war. I learned all the stories from my dad. He's kind of like distant and he self-medicates a lot.
How old was your grandma when this was going on?
Oh, she was in high school or
Okay.
like just finishing up high school.
So your grandpa was a little bit older, about the same, but about
Yeah.
the same age.
About the same age, yeah. And my grandpa was from a small town in Montana. So he definitely had a different perspective than my grandma.
Did you learn anything you didn't? What?
Learning that my grandpa had confirmed kills in Vietnam was kind of weird. Yeah,
Yeah, that's weird. I mean, you know what?
but kind of crazy. It explains a lot.
And that thing about self-medicating, that makes it sad.
Yeah, he can't remember a lot of stuff now.
All right, good job. And that thing about getting married right away, there's a desperate sense for normalcy.
Yep.
To try to go back to the way it was, and so sometimes it happens all the time. Okay, so we're not sure what's gonna happen next week, so I'm gonna let Rory go right now. And she's gonna destroy my desk first, and then she'll go. Give me one sec. I am ready. Go.
Okay, so I interviewed my grandpa. He served in Vietnam from 1967 to 1970. So he enlisted at 17 in artillery. His whole family, as a group decision, decided to enlist because they didn't want to be drafted into a war that they probably would be drafted into if they didn't enlist in. I learned from him that when I asked him about the draft, he absolutely hated the draft, and it got worse, obviously, throughout the years. I didn't really get much information off of that, but I asked him as my first official question what he thought about the US's involvement in Vietnam, and he said it was like a whole world away from him, like politics wise, because he was really, really focused on what he had to do because it was like a very personal problem for him. He was going into battle. He was going to face an enemy. And so him and his group never really talked about the politics officially. That's something throughout this whole interview that he never really did. He always avoided politics. So the only time he did pay attention to politics is when like a dignitary or a higher rank officer came by and gave them big news at their station. What I then asked him was what I asked him was why he thought the US was at war. He said he didn't ever think to wonder. He knew why he was there. It was to fight for his country. Next, a very interesting question I asked him was what was his view on the war? Like, did it change throughout his service? He started talking to me about when LBJ was president. They were always in need of basic materials like boots and such. So he thought it was a struggle. They always felt like they were in need, and everyone else had supplies that they didn't have. So that was a really rough time. But in his last year of serving, he talked about Nixon became president and everything changed. He got lots of supplies. It kind of boosted their morale during their last battle in his last year. So things got a little less worse for him, and that's how the war changed in his perspective, not politics wise. When he served, he was like always in areas affected by Agent Orange the most, but he hasn't gained any disease or any medical condition from that. A lot of his friends, prior friends had. He has colors on his cane that he always carries around. That it's a picture that depict different agents, which I thought was really cool because he's always carrying around that cane, and I never knew what those colors were for. Um, so
Let me get the cane up here, just give me.
We'll get the picture up. Then it's gonna switch.
Give it a sec. That's interesting what you said about, remember I told you how they weren't ready to fight and it's gonna take years? So when he was there when they were still trying to get the infrastructure ready to fight. Then when it was ready, that's when Nixon was president.
Yeah, so that's his cane. Agent Orange is like the most on his cane. I did search up the different agents and I saw, I think Agent Green and Yellow. There's a very dark color. I don't know what that stands for, but that's always
We
been
put
on
it
his
for the,
cane.
for the other herbicides.
Mhm.
It was just by the color they put on the barrel, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, and I never knew what his cane had those colors for until I interviewed him, so I thought that was really cool.
When, did he make it there or did he make it when he get back?
Made it when he got back.
Yeah, okay.
After the war, 'cause that's the main thing he always remembered. So something that he started talking to me about right after this was he had some very remorseful moments like towards citizens and villagers. But one thing he said was his group ended up killing 30 something elephants on the Ho Chi Minh Trail. And quote unquote, he said, that made me feel bad. I really like elephants. I thought that was sad, but just a little fact.
Just happened to be there, kind of thing.
Yeah. So back to shaping his view on the war, personal safety, it will never be the same again for him. He can't walk outside at night without doing double takes and turning on his porch light. It's a real struggle for him, especially at night. It's really hard. And that ties into the treatment of veterans. When after I asked him about personal safety, he said what really sent him over the edge is when he got back to the airport, he'd always heard rumors, but they instantly got raw eggs thrown at them. Um, and it really made him upset. I know the one insult that made him upset the most was baby killer. It made him really upset. And that's what happened after he arrived home at an airport. I did not catch what the airport was. My grandpa also thought LG or LBJ and McNamara was using the war for money. He hated McNamara a lot. That's what I got out of this interview. He absolutely despised him. Okay, let me go to the facts. So he did tell me that something he thought McNamara said. He didn't like him because he said that McNamara said, "I wish they would all go away and die" to the Marines. I searched that up and I couldn't find it. So that's probably something he heard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
But if you hear something you want to believe it, it becomes true to you.
I did do a lot of searching. So in this interview, I asked him about human beings shouldn't be killed or shouldn't kill other human beings. And what he said about that was that he completely agrees with it. And that would always be his first decision. But when war happens with his country, he's going to fight no matter what his opinion is. And then I also asked him about the how much evil needs to be done for good. And he said he doesn't think evil should be done at all. It's just the way it was and is. So that's what he told me. I didn't get much else because he really would not talk to me about politics. He would always go onto a trail. So that's why I created a whole facts page.
Okay.
So he never received a draft card. He was 17, and I believe you had to be 18. They would check you if you were 18 for a draft card. And he was 17 when he enlisted, so he never had a draft card. He mainly decided to enlist because if he did, they guaranteed free medical care for the rest of their life. And it took him 26 years to get that. He did not want to tell me why. For some
And
reason.
it's good healthcare. Watch it.
Yeah. So he thought that was a plus. He also wanted to be a Marine ever since he was 4 years old. So he always felt like either way he was gonna be a Marine. It just so happened it would be for the Vietnam War. He recently found out he was on one of the most dangerous hills in Vietnam, Hill 55, and I searched it up and it said it was Camp Muir. A super deadly sniper named Apache. She was a female Viet Cong member soldier and interrogator, would shoot targets on the hill he was on for many weeks, and they never knew who was killing them until here recently. And so I found that very ironic that he recently found out, and I decided to interview him right after he found out that.
Wow. That's right. Remember I mentioned the McNamara wall? That was part of it.
Mhm. An interesting, really cool fact I found out about what he was saying was you could write the word free as a stamp on your letters, is what he told me. I didn't see anything, but he told me that if you didn't have a stamp or something, you could write the word free.
Oh, for soldiers sending.
Yeah,
back.
for soldiers.
Yeah.
Sending back letters to their family. Um, this is an event that happened after the war, but my grandpa was really excited to tell me he was one of the very few vets that got to do Run for the Wall with his drill instructor, which was an event to honor vets and call accountability for POWs and MIAs. It was a motorcycle travel from everywhere over the country to the Vets Memorial in Washington, D.C. And so he got to do that with his drill instructor, and he was really excited to tell me that.
Really cool.
Yeah, and I thought it was really cool, so I researched it. Um, and his lesson, but in the end, he stated he was satisfied with his service, and if he had to do it again with his knowledge he'd gained, he would. He would do it again. And the lesson he had was to pay attention to history's patterns. It will most likely always repeat itself. So yeah.
Sounds like a great interview. And then something you learned a lot you didn't
Yeah.
know. That's interesting about
I did.
the sniper. He was the Marines had Army had a 12-month pitch. I was gonna tell you that when 12 months. Marines, because they're Marines, got 13. So he was there longer. All right, any questions? Nice job, and I kind of got a lot that you learned. Very good. I like to get some research on that. Awesome. Good story. Yeah, quick one. You ready?
Or
It's fine, it's fine. Yeah, that's, remember I told you how much fun it is? I'm open for you to learn something you didn't know. And then I like hearing, it. I think it's great. I like when people find out stuff. I got it, don't. Yeah, but hang on there. We'll leave the cane up there. Oh, one more thing I'll show you. He has this. I'm pretty sure though this. See the yellow, red. That's the colors of the South Vietnamese flag. So I think that's what that is. And then the other colors, green. There was an Agent Green, Agent Orange. That's my guess. I just noticed that. Oh.
Okay, so background, I interviewed this guy named Orty. He runned with my grandpa in a motorcycle club that he made. And yeah, his full name's Ortloff, basically. He's sick, that's his, biker name. He didn't get called into the draft. He was a sophomore in, high school when the war officially ended. But, after 2 years, he either had to, he had a choice between enlisting or going to prison. Because he and some of his friends stole a car and found beer in a train and
Liberated it?
and liberated it, yeah. And then the funny thing is, vodka can be used as gasoline, which I learned.
Yes, it can.
Yeah. So
Wow, what a, so that, we already know what you learned.
yeah, that was crazy. I didn't know that. Very much so.
It's not very cost effective, but moving on.
It's not at all. But yeah. So he did this thing called basic when he joined, which was just the main training. He went out there and went to the wrong stuff. Okay, yeah. He he really didn't like how he was treated or anyone else was because he did not fare well against like upper powers, like people like talking back to him. He was very rebellious. And he basically talked back a lot, and he figured out, oh, I shouldn't do that or else I will be in trouble and have to do more stuff. He told me about like how he had to wake up at 4 a.m. because he chose to work on trucks basically. Because he would get first food. That's what they would tell him. They would get hot piping food instead of the other guys having to wait in line, like having to. They basically waited like front to back, right next to each other. It was very strict, he'd say. He didn't like the brass's arrogance, which was the top people. And another thing he told me when he was doing basic was that they like got like at least like 100 people into like a big like just like facility, like concrete facility, and would just like get them with tear gas. And each person, would just have to like say their name, say their rank, and then everyone would just run out once they were done with that. They still kind of do that today, but not as bad. They actually have gas masks and they just like do that, and then just like put it back on and they're fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, it's unreal.
Yeah, another unreal thing was that he was also like forced to march. I think it was to Texas. It was Orchard to Texas, which I don't know exactly where Orchard was, but he told me it was a really long march. I think it was about like 10 kilometers or something like that. Probably more or something. But he watched a man was really big to him that he just watched a man die from heat stroke because they marched him too hard. And he remembered him complaining like under his breath so the people wouldn't hear him. He didn't really understand why he had to die. He was very confused on how everything was being handled there. Like he understood why like some guidelines were strict, but he didn't understand why people like him had to die. I asked him how he thought about the draft, and he thought it was really scary. Obviously, like he had a friend like before the Vietnam War go to Korea and come back, and it wasn't the same for him either. And he also thought that it was really shifty how they handled it. He definitely doesn't have like trust in the government, but like he like believes in American values, I'd say. Because and he believed that why we entered Vietnam was to help North Vietnam, which obviously wasn't true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever, yeah.
I just like avoided that. I was like, yeah. And he thought like expanding the war though to Cambodia. He told me with Nixon was just for money, and he did not like that. He told me the war was like a necessary evil with the because he thought it was for a good cause, but yeah. Second. He when he came back, or when not when he came back, but when he throughout what he saw, um, he, sorry, he saw people like how veterans were treated, like being called baby killers and such, and he really didn't like how the veterans were being treated or like how they were being commented on the news. He saw on the news just he didn't see any like remorse towards the towards any veterans or like during the Vietnam War, and he was very disheartened about that because he like knew like both sides were like just had bad on both sides, but it was not good. But after basic, he went out to Oklahoma and learned how to work on a holster, which is like a tank, but like not at the same time. It has like a certain like scope and like and he had to pinpoint like different coordinates on this. That's how what he learned.
What are we calling it?
A hoser, and he became a cannon caulker.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He and then after he was done in Oklahoma, he went over to Germany and worked on that. He didn't really remember much because it happens, but yeah. He thought as a people that what he was comparing to today and now, I mean, I said today now, now and Vietnam was that he wanted, he thought that the government was just trying to divide us. And he really thought that division, with different political parties really just didn't like, he wanted us to, he like said like, there's no dem and don'ts in Americans. We want Americans.
Okay, why not?
Yeah.
You all can use that too.
Yeah. I believe he also saw throughout the Vietnam War another thing adding to the treatment of the veterans is that he saw all throughout school like this praise that went through like World War II and like history. He like believed that this like praise for America. And then he got nothing for Vietnam, and he was really confused on why that happened exactly. And yeah, he just didn't like the government and like the people.
He's an American.
Yeah, he's American. You're American, yeah.
And so you knew him before a little bit?
Yeah, I talked to him a bit, because I had to go to some biker events with my grandpa.
Sure.
He's a great guy, but yeah, just, yeah, he's chill sometimes.
So when he said that we were helping in North Vietnam,
Yeah,
was your first instinct, was that partridge? Oh, God.
yeah, definitely. No, I just kept my mouth shut.
Yeah,
Yeah,
why not? He's rolling.
yeah, he was very confused on what happened exactly, which happens. He was very mad at Nixon and a lot, which fair enough.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounded like a good interview. I mean, it's kind of one of those that's on the edge of the Vietnam War, but you learned a lot. I mean, and I knew about the tear gas thing. That's insane.
Yeah, awful.
All right, great job. We're gonna keep your cane up.
Okay.
Perfect background.
Okay.
All right, I am ready. Go.
So I interviewed my Nana, who is a special character. So it took a 3-hour interview to get anything out of her. My first question for her was, what was she doing during the Vietnam War? She was 6 when it started, so she didn't really remember anything other than her parents talking about how they were afraid of like the communism and it coming to America and that they were going to be next. And they made them train running into a bunker, a hurricane bunker, which I don't know why they had one of those because they lived in Laurel, Montana. But they did. So they did those all the time for like nuclear war and stuff.
A hurricane butler?
Yeah,
Wow.
in Laurel, Montana.
Yeah.
She was one of 9. So even when she got a little bit older, that wasn't necessarily, the war wasn't something she was too focused on, other than like just watching in the afternoons because she was the oldest of 9. So, but she said she was always very scared for
her boyfriend at the time got drafted because he was 6 years older than her. And so he got drafted and he didn't make it back. And I tried very hard to get her to tell me about that. And she was like, oh, he doesn't matter. It's fine. And I was like, oh, okay. She thought she really enjoyed watching the people get picked up by helicopters and watching them get just like zipped out of there. That was one of her like favorite things to do apparently when she was younger. Which is really weird if you know her. She's a very like every time I'll say, oh, this person, something happened. She's like, oh, I'll pray for them. And yet her pastime was watching people get zipped out of the I asked if she specifically about the draft and how she felt about it. And she said it's sometimes necessary. And she did not agree with the fact that we were drafting people for the Vietnam War because she's like, I knew we weren't fighting for that. It was just about the communism. And she knew what the domino was. So I was really surprised about that because she's not interested in politics at all. We don't talk about it. Everyone has different beliefs in our family. So it's usually not something she talks about. So I thought that was really interesting that she knew that. I just got really mad because my grandpa was one of the people who ran away to Canada. Well, one of them was one that ran away to Canada, the other one is in the Navy Reserve. And he thought they were all very weak for that. So she was not pleased with them. But she's also part of a WMIA thing where you get assigned a person who was going missing in action. And you basically just research them and you keep like page updated about what their life was like before they went missing.
Did she want a little bracelet? You remember?
She does have a bracelet. Mhm. And she can't remember the name of the guy because she hasn't seen him, but he went missing in 1968. And they never found evidence of where he went or they know absolutely nothing about where he went. So that was fine. I asked her like several times, did you know anyone get drafted? And she's like, well, most of our school got drafted. Like all the guys from our school got drafted. And when I tried to pry into like how she felt about those people, she was like, yet again, she was very, I'm not talking. She did inform me that my Uncle Mike accidentally cut his finger off right before he got drafted. So he didn't go. Yeah. So yeah, he did not. He accidentally cut his finger off with a saw in the shop right before getting drafted, which I was very, very Mike of him. But so that was yeah. But other than I tried asking her about the president McNamara, and I was debating whether I should say this or not, but she went, they were not hot enough for me to pay attention to them. She said they were dorks and she had no interest in anything they had to say. So that was a very interesting segue into some other topics she had to talk about. She did feel bad for the president because she felt like he'd gotten the responsibilities pushed onto him, but that's all she had to say about that. I asked her because my grandma they were raised in a liberal family, which she did say a big part of like in what she saw is that people just followed what their parents were because she is now considered she's more Republican than she is conservative. Like she's more conservative. And she was like, at the time I was very liberal and she thought about participating in some of the protests, but then she was kind of like, I'm in Laurel, Montana. Nothing happens here. And she's like, I don't have the abilities to go places. So some of her siblings did go to some of them because she went to college and they followed her to college and some of them participated, but she never did. And then I asked her about seeing the protests in Vietnam and like people burning themselves on the street. And she said she was horrified by it, but darkly intrigued. She worked as a morgue technician for a really long time. So she has a very unusual appreciation for gruesome deaths, as she put it. So she was horrified by it and also interested. She thought she was like, was it the women who were doing it? And I was like, there was some, and then I was like, but there was also like some monks and stuff. And then that kind of rebooted her memory. She went on a long rant about one of the people watching it in color as they burned alive, which was another interesting conversation she had. And like I said, she goes on, and every single avenue we went back to this enemies to lovers romance book she gave me after the fact that told me to read because it was about the Vietnam War and it was about the like I, everything went back to that. So it was a fight to get anything used, whatever. And because of that, I did end up interviewing my Aunt Julie as well, because her mom was during the Vietnam, her mom had moved from Great Britain. I'm not exactly sure where because she wouldn't tell us. But so she thought it was, in her words, rubbish that we went to war with the to Vietnam. And they would travel back and forth, and every time her dad was going to get drafted, they'd just go back to Britain under the ideas of that her parents were getting ill, they needed to go take care of them. So they just kept going back to Britain every time he almost got drafted. So yeah, that was also very interesting. I asked her, she compared it a lot to the Korean War and then the things going on now. And she was talking about how she has gotten more involved in things and trying to prevent them and doing protests. But yet again, it's all at church and they don't actually, they just sit there and talk about how much they hate it. So it's kind of productive, kind of not. That's about it.
Well, sounds like a good long interview. And
Yes.
what if the one thing you learned you didn't,
Um,
did you know about the finger?
all I knew about, because he doesn't have a finger and he would chase me around wiggling the stuff that's left. So I did know about the
Of
finger.
course you did.
Yeah, and she had one. It had a literally typical mic. I think the most surprising thing was I didn't know she worked as a morgue technician because now she's very like she can't stand seeing blood anymore. So I was like, that's really strange that you did that. And it was also interesting to find out that both my grandpas, I don't talk to them very much, that they both ended up finding ways to avoid the war and that she actually canceled her engagement with one of them due to it and ended up marrying him after the war was like well as over because she was mad at him for it.
That's
Yeah, so she was not happy about that. That was very interesting to hear.
so, see, learn a lot about people you didn't know. That's good.
A lot.
Good job. Thank you. You want to go? You want to go? Or does Keegan want to go? One of you two. You pick. Oh, did you choose him? Very good. All right.
So my interview is a little weird and strange, and also it's kind of gaffy because he got a like head injury, but not during the war. It was well after it, so he doesn't remember some parts of it. Um, but anyways, I interviewed, his name's Henry. He comes into my work a lot, and I don't know, he's really nice, and I admire him. He's a character though. So basically, before the Vietnam War, he was at college, but he told me he got really bored of it, so he enlisted in the National Guard. But he got really tired of like the fact, like once the war started, he got really tired of their lack of involvement in it. So they apparently had a thing where if you missed like 3 of their roll calls, he called it, they would enlist you in like to the actual active army. So he got sent over into Vietnam, and he said he was basically there from the start to the end, which I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if he was there the entire time.
That's pretty rare, but
Yeah, a lot of his stuff, like I said, I think it has to do with his kind of head injury. Sure. Oh, also, this interview was very hard because the only time we could find to do it was in a car. So it was very difficult, and he was like in the back seat.
Okay.
Yeah, it was hard. So, yeah, he, in a sense, enlisted in the Vietnam War, but really kind of didn't. But yeah, for question 2, for the point of the war, he said he believed it was to stop the spread of communism. He did say he questioned if we should have been in Vietnam, but he also like didn't disagree. He was very for the war. I would say, because yeah, some of his remarks. Yeah, he didn't disagree with the fact that we were there. He just said it could have gone a little better. Um, and then number three, he did volunteer in a way. He was very, very prideful in his like in his citizenship of America. He felt like it was his duty to fight for his country and go to war. So yeah, he was very, very prideful. And then he didn't, this part, it was kind of weird. He said originally he didn't have anyone that was drafted, but he said he was like a family of 11. And 3 people out of his family, I don't think including him, went to Vietnam, but they were all doctors. So they didn't actually fight. Um, but that was the most I could get out of that. And then for number 4, he said, I must write that. Said it already, but he said he felt it was like he was fighting the war to stop the spread of communism, and he felt it was his duty to partake in the war. I don't know; those were a little weird. But for number 5, um, he he wasn't very political. So he said he didn't like obviously it changed his viewpoint, but not really politically, just like after the war. His views on like how he was treated and such changed. Um, but he also didn't really go into detail because I don't think he really felt comfortable talking kind of politically with me, but yeah. Um, yeah. For number 6. Oh, he was not a fan at all of like LBJ, and he especially hated McNamara. He really didn't want to talk about him, and he said when they would come over for like kind of conferences, interviews, kind of for like television, he wouldn't. I don't know. He just would walk away and such. He was really not a fan. um, but yeah, he's very against the higher ups, basically. And then 7, he didn't want to talk about those very much, the quotes, but he did say he agreed with the first one. Because he like he didn't agree with people killing other people. He was kind of pacifistic in that sense, but he also didn't really like I don't know. He didn't disagree as well. He's all over the place with that. Um, and he didn't agree with McNamara's claim um, on the last part of the quote. And then for the second part, he agreed with this first part again, but also didn't agree with McNamara's input. Yeah,
Anything McNamara said, yeah.
he is very strong, and he wouldn't tell me exactly why. I think he just didn't really like their like lack of involvement, specifically on like the ground level. Like they would just kind of say what they like the information they got and what they inferred, and he didn't like that. And then he had a lot of kind of side stories. It's kind of out of order because he started off by saying like what all he did in the war. So he after the National Guard and like being sent into Vietnam, uh he said he really disliked the officers and how they treated them. Like specifically some of them, not all of them, but he hated them. And then he became a warrant officer, he said later on. I don't know, didn't give a time frame on that though. So yeah, he hated them and then became one, and then yeah. Um, and he also said he got spit on by hippies, which I kind of believe, but he didn't. I don't know. Yeah, said he got spit on by them. He did. I was debating this part. He said he had some very fond memories of specifically Saigon, um, because of drinking. He said he said something about Canadian Club, which I forgot to see if it was an actual drink, but I think it is.
It's a distillery.
Okay. Yeah, he liked the drinking and the women, he said. We went into more detail on that, which I will not.
We should not.
Yeah. And then he said he tried pot twice, but disliked it. So, yeah. He's very much of a, I don't think he was in a very bad part of Vietnam for most of the time he was there. Because he didn't have any kinds of like PTSD, he said, or anything like that.
Was he like in the infantry? Did he say what he was?
He said at like some point he was like part of the helicopter crew that would like do treetop shootings on the ground level. But I don't know. And then he was stationed in a tower, he said, like a base. And they would have to fight off like Viet Cong trying to take it over, which he said they only took it over once, which he said was the first time he actually felt fear because it was all the gunfire and whatnot. But I don't remember who he said got sent in, but they sent in some people and they took it back over. And after that, I think he got sent back for a little bit. He said he never got any real wounds. He said like the most he had was like a broken arm, I think it was. He had a cast. I don't remember why he had it, but I don't know.
Sound like a stream of consciousness kind of interview.
Yeah. And then there was a weird side tangent he went off into about his aunt's twin brother getting caught by the French twice.
But French?
Yes, I don't know. I think this was way before that, but he started going off about that, and I started to write it, and then realized it really wasn't about what. Yeah, he was a little all over the place. Oh, and he really disliked. He disliked people that hated the draft, and he also hated the jocks and how they were able to get out of the draft.
The jocks? Just have his memory of that, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, anything about that, we'll finish on Monday. Nice job, Keegan. Thank you for doing it. Yeah, that's not, I mean, some of it entertaining, but hard to
Yeah.
organize. I get it.
And I didn't realize it was gonna be so hard until I started doing it, and I was like, oh no, this is